The isolation of the coronavirus pandemic left many young people hungry for connection and a feeling of safety. One of the internet trends that I thought was symptomatic of this ailing was the popularity of dark academia and its associated aesthetic. A brief investigation into this trend will reveal that Donna Tartt's The Secret History lies at the heart of this aesthetic. It is frequently cited as its founding novel. But because it was published in 1992, I was interested to understand why its popularity resurged now. Having just read it, I believe the answer lies in the aforementioned feeling of connection and safety it provides, despite it being a murder mystery. And that feeling comes in the form of a classic literary archetype, that of the wise old man. The Secret History and the dark academia trend it has recently engendered are discussed ubiquitously on YouTube, and so I won't go over them here. Instead, for writers, I think the novel and the trend together are invaluable for understanding the power of archetypes within literature and how understanding the ailments of our contemporary society can allow writers to use archetypes most effectively. Archetypes, or frequently recurring symbols or motifs in literature, painting, or mythology, are ideas sharing similar traits throughout various, seemingly unrelated cases in classic storytelling. In The Secret History, Donna Tartt uses the wise old man archetype in the character of Julian Morrow, a classics professor who limits enrollment to a hand-picked clique of 5 students. I'd argue it's this character and his tiny class of students that is responsible for sparking the dark academia trend. But to understand how that works, it's worth briefly reviewing the archetype itself. As Wikipedia tells us, this type of character is typically represented as a kind and wise, older father-type figure who uses personal knowledge of people and the world to help tell stories and offer guidance that, in a mystical way, may impress upon his audience a sense of who they are and who they might become, thereby acting as a mentor. He may occasionally appear as an absent-minded professor, appearing absent-minded due to a predilection for contemplative pursuits. The wise old man is often seen to be from a different culture, nation, or occasionally time from those that he advises. In extreme cases, he may be a liminal being, such as Merlin, who was only half human. According to renowned Canadian literary critic Northrop Frye, in medieval chivalric romance and modern fantasy literature, the wise old man is often presented as a wizard. He can also, or instead, be featured as a hermit. In storytelling, the character of the wise old man is commonly killed or in some other way removed for a time in order to allow the hero to develop on his or her own. So, with that in mind, I'd argue that this archetype is ubiquitous because it appeals to our common human need to be seen and heard as individuals. As a social species, experienced guidance is something we all probably unconsciously strive for at various times in our lives, none perhaps more so than when we are students. In a modern world that has us mostly overworked, with our efforts rewarded in a way that is hardly fulfilling, consumerism and materialism are touted as the answers, many of us might feel the need for some personal guidance and encouragement from a wise elder. This, I think, especially applies to students, since the education system is essentially antithetical to understanding oneself. Rather, its depersonalized, utilitarian approach demands that to succeed, students must work themselves to the bone, and all that simply for a means to an end, a qualifying paper in the form of a degree. And so the feelings of pointlessness and isolation created in this system bring the need for feeling nurtured and being seen to the fore, and at the same time leaving students subconsciously or consciously needing reassurance that there can be a point to such an approach. when encouraged by a keenly interested mentor. If we might fall into idealizing our need for a kindly elder guide, then Donna Tartt was there in 1992 to leverage this in the written art form. And so the secret history's secret, I think, might lie in the archetypal power of the character of Julian Morrow. Donna Tartt creates her version of the old wise man by giving him an update. Instead of a cave or secret temple, he works in a secluded, beautiful office. A quote, not an office at all, and likewise magical, quote, bigger on the inside than on the outside. His behavior is also quite hermit-like. Things which were odd by Julian's definition often turned out to be things which were amusingly mundane. And his teaching is nothing short of utopian. This is exemplified when he says things like, "Are you ready to leave the phenomenal world and enter the sublime?" Or, "I should call it the most glorious kind of play." The appeal of this kind of classroom, or guidance in a subject we're mutually passionate about with an elder guide, is probably what drew isolated students during the pandemic to this story. It may be romanticized, but it uses an archetype to do so, and as Jung would point out, that reaches deep into our subconscious. The character of Richard, perhaps the most intelligent classmate of the protagonist, has an arc that is partly about coming to terms with the facade behind this idealization of education. Julian, who is a father figure to him, runs away when confronted by ugly truth. But in this way, Julian remains firmly in the magical wise man archetype. As I've already mentioned, the character of the old wise man is commonly killed or in some way removed for a time in order to allow the hero to develop. And as the character of Richard points out, he wants Julian to exist in that mode of wise elder because that mode was what was most effective and moving for him and the others. While the point of the story may be to be critical of these things, that is, archetypes and any idealization or romanticization thereof, and you can see Christy Ann Jones's video essay on The Secret History for more on that, it's worth pointing out that if there is a need to remain critical about these things, it is precisely because we want to romanticize them. We want them to exist. We need the wise man archetype in our lives, and seeing it in writing is appealing and engaging. And needs are, of course, at the core of every good story. How will you use the modern world to explore human needs? And what parts of our collective subconscious might you expose in your characters? Thanks for watching, guys. I hope that was helpful. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. There are more video essays coming based in literature, just like this one. If you like my analysis of visual media, like I have done with Star Wars Visions, make sure you hit the bell after subscribing to be notified of when the next video is coming. Thanks again, guys, and in the meantime, don't forget to flex your writing muscles.